If you want to scramble up Holme Clough, this video guide will help. It's just a single grade 1 waterfall, but lots of pools and cascades to clamber up. Holme Clough lies to the east of Greenfield Reservoir under Saddleworth Moor. Details of parking, routes and grading are given in the text description underneath the video.
This roofless tumble-down house is an obvious waypoint for getting to the start of Holme Clough. If you parked up on Saddleworth Moor on the A635 car park, kind of in the middle of nowhere, then you can walk along and come down the track by the side of Rimmon Pit Clough, and then you can keep going down Rimmon Pit Clough all the way to the start point of Holme Clough. It's taken about 20 minutes to come down Rimmon Pit Clough from the car park on the A635. It's quite tricky going because there is no path. Here we are at the junction of Rimmon Pit and Holme Clough. There's Holme Clough going up there, and Holme Clough does go down further to the junction with Birchen Clough. I'm going to walk down there to see what's what, because down there at the junction to Birchen Clough is also an alternative entry point where you can walk round Yeoman and Greenfield Reservoirs. Now at the junction of Holme Clough and Birchen Clough, and flowing out Greenfield Brook. It's taken about 50 minutes to get here from the A635 car park, which actually is pretty much the same it would take from Binn Green car park much earlier on, so that's potentially a better way of coming in, certainly because it's a lot easier to get in on the path and a lot less slippery. Probably is worth starting Holme Clough from this point, because as you can already see, there are some quite nice waterfalls, but as can be told from the colour of the rocks there's an awful lot of algae on the rocks. It's all been extremely slippery. Here's the starting point. You can just about see the parapet wall there, and this is the first of the cascades to be going up in Holme Clough. It's slow going up Holme Clough. The rocks on the stream bed are relatively large, which means step by step it's quite uneven, and then there are also a series of pools that appear quite suddenly under your feet, and that also slows you down. But it's a relatively continuous gradient, and that makes it interesting. This is the best of the cascades on the lower part of Holme Clough. I'm now back at the junction with Rimmon Pit Clough, just by the main waterfall on Holme Clough. And this last bit here, I walked up the path by the side of the brook because it's relatively flat and there's not that much to draw you down into the brook. Here's the main waterfall on Birchen Clough. If you don't fancy getting very wet and trying to go up the centre, the main recommended route is just up here to the left, but it's also relatively easy to get up here on the right as well. Coming up here on the left hand side was incredibly straightforward, and this now leads on to a series of small cascades above a pool. This is what the upper part of Holme Clough looks like. Nothing difficult in terms of grade or gradient, but just a long series of cascades. The only challenge being that the pools underneath can be quite uneven, and you might slip in up to waist or even chest deep at times, and the slipperiness of getting up the rocks. There's no obvious marker point here apart from perhaps these two huge boulders on the side of the brook, but this looks like a reasonable place, or a potential place at least, to get out and to stop. I'm going to carry on further, but it seems to be flattening out from this point. Here's part of the upper reaches of Holme Clough, a deep pool leading up to a kind of zigzagging set of cascades. There've been a reasonable set of cascades and deep pools since the first possible exit point that I identified, so here's a second possible exit point by this rocky outcrop, because once again it looks like the clough may be flattening and opening out a bit, but to be fair, that's what I thought the previous time, so I'll carry on further. Above that rocky outcrop it really does start to open out and flatten off. There have just been a few set of rather flat, wide, shallow cascades. However, if you do carry on that little bit further above the rocky outcrop, you can see here that we've come to a path with a crossing point, and that leads up and away, and hopefully will lead off to the A635. There's another path coming down that links up to it here, so hopefully that will be large enough to walk along. Holme Clough is always going to suffer somewhat from its proximity to Birchen Clough. Birchen Clough is shorter, steeper, much more of a scramble. Holme Clough, well, you've only really got one waterfall on it, which is relatively easy to get up, and the rest of it, on a positive side, a lot of pools, fairly deep pools, and a whole series of cascades above them that you can get up without much difficulty, but there's lots of them and they're fairly continuous. Uneven underfoot, pretty slippery, and it's not really what I'd call scrambling. It's something in between walking along a brook and scrambling up a brook. I think I say this for quite a number of cloughs around grade 1, but it's the kind of thing that you might take a beginner on. But otherwise, if you're in the area and you really wanted a proper scramble, you'd probably choose to go up Birchen Clough instead.